Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. We're going to have a great show. I've got a friend, Dr. Blasi. He's a ruminant nutritionist and he's an expert in stocker cattle production, and we're going to talk about some new and novel research that he's doing at the stocker unit here at Kansas State University. We're going to talk about limit feeding byproduct feeds to high-risk calves to get them started. Something that helps refine and fit cattle and decreasing logistics, decreasing manure, many more positive things. Stay tuned.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Dr. Blasi, who is a professor over in animal science, and he is the leader of our stocker unit here at K-State, which if you haven't been to the stocker unit or come to stocker unit days, stocker days, right? You should. It's in September, usually third week of September.
Right after AARP.
There you go. Right after AARP, you can go to one and then come catch the other. And it is probably one of the most informational meetings we have on campus for when it pertains to beef cattle. And what Dr. Blasi has done with that stocker unit, when I first got here is when you first started, so about 15 years ago.
About 15.
And now the fencing and the cross fencing and the pins and the technology, folks, it's something that you need to come see here at K-State. Proud of it. Thank you. Dr. Dale, we're going to talk about starting calves, and let's just start out with kind of, it's some of the same song, different verse, right?
It's been that way, it seems like, since they invented semi-trucks.
Yeah, and so we get these calves, commingled, high-risk calves come in, and issues.
They don't want to eat, different environment, the stress on the road. They're tired, they're grouchy, and it's really tough to get some calories and some necessary protein into them to mount that response that hopefully doesn't happen in terms of a health outbreak.
Right. So we get these calves in. We're trying to get them rested. We're trying to get them to eat, and then we also have the stress of if people don't know how to handle them. If we come in and we're whipping and spurring and different things of that. So really, what it gets back to is the animal husbandry of how do we make these cattle feel at home.
That's right, and the link to the whole thing is long stem grass hay. That's one way to entice a calf up to the bunk, especially with waterers. If they've not even, we use mirror mounts in our pens, and a lot of them drink out of tanks and ponds, and they really don't understand the whole concept, and they may still be maybe balling, and so that long stem hay kind of gives them a little taste of home, if you will, in terms of starting the process of settling them down.
Yeah, they walk in there, it's something that's familiar. I don't know what all this stuff is, but I know what that is, so I'm going to go over there and nibble on that. What do you, when you guys are, you're obviously receiving calves all the time. Are there things that you're seeing in the cattle that are coming in, or is it the same type of issues, lightweight, commingled, or are there anything else that we're noticing?
Well, the nature of our work out there, we may do a lot of health-related work, in which case we are looking for stressed calves. Typically, calves that unfairly, from the southeast, for example, that come out of auction markets, we purchase our calves from an order buyer out of Dixon, Tennessee. He does a marvelous job of assembling calves for us from sale barns throughout northern Alabama and Tennessee proper. And we anticipate the potential stress coming into our facility. On the other hand, prearranged sales, cattle that origin from larger ranches and so forth, where we're doing production-related work, there's a whole bunch more. We know the history on those calves, the preconditioning and everything that goes into it. it's a dramatic difference in terms of the approach on these calves. But typically, getting them to eat is really the first step in ensuring that you have a smooth transition.
Cool. Well, that's a good segue, folks, into what we're going to talk about on some of these limit feeding projects that Dr. Blasi is doing out there. Thanks for watching DocTalk. We'll be right back.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
This segment brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook. Visit us online at sftmeats.com.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Dale Blasi, who's a professor in ruminant nutrition and beef production at our stocker unit here at Kansas State. And we're talking about, he's trying to get a rise out of me by saying that the stocker meeting is stocker day is right after AARP. It's AABP. It's bovine practitioners, not the ARP, although we do qualify for both. So if you think that I'm running off to Albuquerque to AARP instead of bovine practitioners, so be it. But come on to Stocker Days right after AABP.
That's correct.
In September. So, Dr. Dale, we get these high-stress calves in. Y'all been doing some unique work with limit feeding, trying to get them, entice them to eat, to get them hungry, keep them hungry.
You know, limit feeding's been around a long time.
Yep. 30,
40 years. It's certainly not a new concept. And there was really a good paper that Oklahoma State, out of a symposium back in 1986, Dr. Bob Lake worked at Hitch Feeders out of Hooker, Oklahoma.
Yep.
That's the yard. And he did a really wonderful job in his article write-up talking about getting calves on limit feeding and taking upwards of 2 weeks to do so. You look at the diet, and it's about 2/3 corn in that diet. And we, the distillers, the corn gluten feed has been on the scene now for almost 15 years, give or take. And so we wanted to look at the utilization and try to exploit these co-products because they're, rather than high in starch, they're high in digestible, soluble fiber, which really does create a substantial amount of energy, potential energy for that calf.
So, and it matches up too with the rumen microbes. If you're going to have cattle on grass and different things like that, that if they're coming in off grass, they probably have some microbes that match up a little better with some of these soluble or the structural carbohydrates that we see.
Right, and the one thing about starting calves on high energy diets, some really good work out of northern New Mexico, down there with, help me out, the guy that invented the California Net Energy System.
Win Lofgren.
Dr. Lofgren had done some wonderful work, and it's shown an increased relationship with the intensity of energy in the diet and morbidity. We also see increased performance as a consequence as well. So our workaround was to try to pull the starch out of the diet, provide the energy in the form of limit feeding, and hopefully get over some of the hurdles that we typically experience during the early phases of incoming cattle.
And we're getting closer to the break, so when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about how the system works and what you're doing. But as a veterinarian, one of the things that we try to do so it helps us with identifying the animals that are sick is keep them aggressive. Because if I'm keeping them hungry and keeping them aggressive to the bunk, the ones that are sick will hang back.
Absolutely, that's correct.
And it helps me from pulling, instead of pulling ugly, I'm pulling sick.
That's correct.
Cool. Well, it's awesome, and it's something that's going to help us out in the field. When we come back, we're going to talk about how Dr. Blasi and his research team has looked at these high energy diets, limit feeding, to help the health of your newly received calves.
SureCrop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecrop.
Did you know long-range planning through the checkoff can help keep your business profitable? To successfully pass on cattle operations from one generation to the next, it's important to promote beef and keep farms and ranches profitable. Your beef checkoff helps do that.
I'm Tom Perrier. Our ranch is called Dale Banks Angus. Dale Banks is not a person, but it's a place. This ranch was started by my great-grandfather. He came from northwest England, and his farm there was called Dale Banks, and so he called his ranch here in the Flint Hills Dale Banks. The beef checkoff today has fulfilled a lot of needs that our industry had over the years. We were very involved in trying to get the beef checkoff passed back in the 70s and early 80s because we saw the need then, and the beef checkoff, I think, has fulfilled a lot of those needs.
I think some of the biggest bonuses that we've gotten from the beef checkoff in the last 20 years have been twofold, both in the research phase of the industry, one being the Beef Quality Assurance Program that showed us just how much money we could capture by simply doing things like moving the injection sites from the hip and rump of the animal up to the neck, where we had less high-valued cuts. That drove millions of dollars into our industry. The other thing that our beef industry did about 15 years ago was embark on new product development, things like the flat iron steak and things that used to get ground into hamburger and other low-valued cuts today are sold for a premium, and that too, just like the Beef Quality Assurance Program, has driven huge dollars into our industry that we all get to share.
Matt's the primary driver behind the operation right now, and he's the 6th generation, and his children will be the 7th generation.
I hope our kids are better at telling our beef industry's story. I think the last several years the beef checkoff has shown us how to do that better. They've given us some tools to do that, so we need to do a better job of telling the wonderful story that we have, and I hope our kids can continue to do that.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care, our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help? How can we help?
This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson and Dr. Dale Blasi here, and we are talking about limit feeding cattle, where Dr. Blasi and his research team have done research at the K-State Stocker Unit with calves, some put together calves, and so talk a little bit about what your treatments were and what you were looking at.
In a nutshell, on day 1 of arrival, we provide the long stem hay, as I indicated earlier, at about 1% of body weight. On day 2, we start our limit feeding diet, and we provide that at 1% with no additional long stem hay. It's the complete diet that's in that 1%. And we'll step those cattle up about 1/4% a day, such that by day 5 or so, those calves are consuming about 2.2% of their body weight. That's dry matter, and they're on the diet. That's 5 days. They're coasting, they're holding it steady. We weigh the cattle because we're doing research, but if a person has a good incoming weight on those cattle, they just automatically calculate the gains. If you look at what the California Net Energy System is, you can, every 2 weeks, you can bump them up the 15 or 18 pounds that you gain every 2 weeks, and you can just continue to increase the amount that they're provided on a dry matter basis.
So what you're doing is you're leaving them, then get them up there to that 2.2, and you're going to leave them at that 2.2, but understanding that every 2 weeks they're putting on 15 to 20 pounds.
That is correct.
So to keep them limit fed, you're just moving that 2.2 up 20 pounds.
That is correct.
So that makes some sense.
And what's in the diet is 40% dry matter basis wet corn gluten feed. We've used wet corn gluten feed as well at Sweet Brand out of southeastern Nebraska. We are in the process of looking at dried distillers in a trial we're going to do later in May. So that works good. All top about 13% roughage in the diet, and about 39% corn, all on a dry matter basis.
So you're looking at putting corn distillers as your two main ingredients. Obviously you have your trace mineral premix and then some hay, I assume.
13% total, split between prairie hay and alfalfa.
So kind of non-conventional from what a lot of people would say on starting calves, but when we're limiting them, you know, when you look back at some of the drought stress cow data, the best ways to feed cows through a drought is to limit feed them corn.
That's correct.
In a dry lot situation, because on a per energy unit basis, that's the cheapest way that we can feed those calves.
We see our performance is very dependable. You can just lock it in. There's been some really good research out there across the country. You look at Ohio State, Oklahoma's done a lot, Texas as well. It's a well-known concept. It's the tweak that we're using is utilizing the majority of the energy coming from the co-product.
And then the advantage of going with dried versus wet is just the shipping and the storage?
But we're also feeding a little bit of silage. We're going to be doing some silage work. So
Gotcha.
Here we are. We're doing a trial right now. We're using 10% of the dry matter in the diet right now with silage. We experience no problem with calves starting feed at all. So, you know, it's the quantity and I think the masking, the odor from the co-product does a nice job of blending it. But we didn't want to create a wet diet, so I think in the future we want to look certainly at bringing in some drier product to create about a 65% or so dry matter product.
We're going to take a break, folks. We'll be back with Dr. Dale Blasi to wrap up on starting calves with limit feeding on a higher calorie diet. Hey folks, thanks for joining me on today's Cattle First Minute as sponsored by Beringer Ingelheim Vet Medica. Today, we're going to talk about colostrum. Colostrum is the first immunity that a calf receives in its life. Within the first 6 to 12 hours of life, we want that calf to get up and suckle the first milk from the mother. That first milk is what we call colostrum, which is packed with antibodies, which then help protect that calf from viruses and bacteria such as E. coli and scours, in which the calf will be exposed to on the farm. The cow is a great source of antibody because she's been living in that environment, been vaccinated for different diseases. She produces those antibodies in the colostrum. We want the calves to be able to get it in the first 6 to 12 hours. So wait to tag that calf until after that calf has had a chance to get colostrum, because it's vitally important for the calf's health, and it's the first step towards raising a healthy calf.
I'm Rexanne Struve, veterinarian in Western Iowa. I have a veterinary clinic and started doing stem cell therapy on dogs in August of 2014. And after the first 2 dogs, after 3 weeks, I saw such dramatic results. I said, hey, I have arthritis. I have joints that really need this help. Where can I go to get this done? I had stem cell therapy done in November of 2014 on my finger joints, my hip, and the ball of my left foot, all of which I'd had real severe problems with. Saw a pretty dramatic improvement in a short amount of time. I would certainly recommend that somebody don't wait until I'm in the position that I was in with the damage already done to my joints. I encourage veterinarians to use it for their animals, and I encourage anybody who sees this video, if you have need, get in contact with these people, because this is a phenomenal place to have this done.
Hi, Hi, I'm Kim Mandarin with Hardy Insurance. I'm here to help you with all of your farm and ranch needs. When it comes to protecting your operation and your family, you need a name you can trust at a price you can afford. Call me today or visit hardyaviationins.com.
Tarwater Farm and Home is a 40-year-old local family-owned business. Clothing for work and play, seeds and feeds, boots, toys for the kids, and tools you'll need for around the house and farm. And a service department to keep them in top running order. It's a big store, so take some time to see what they have for your farm and home. Tarwater's everyday pricing is like others' sale prices. When you need it, they've got it. Tarwater Farm and Home, 4107 North Topeka Boulevard.
Healthy cows start with the new hired hand automatic livestock sprayer. Rancher invented to provide an efficient alternative to pour-on and injectable parasite management systems. The portable design allows cattle to treat themselves head to hoof. Strategic device placement with pass-through activation technology takes the stress out of parasite treatment for cattle and the rancher, leaving more time to tend to other vital tasks on the farm. To learn more, visit cowsprayer.com. The new hired hand makes healthy cows easy.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook or Twitter.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson and Dr. Dale Blasi, where Dr. Blasi is the leader at our stocker unit, and he is a professor in ruminant nutrition and extension across the state working with stocker cattle, and has done some tremendous research here looking at co-products and limit feeding to get these high-risk calves started. And so while we think about the performance and we think about the cost of gain and our intakes, there are other things that are advantages to doing this.
Certainly, and you indicated health in an earlier segment here, this program. It really facilitates in terms of getting those calves that when they want to eat. And the first thing I hear from producers is those calves are bawling. They almost will literally climb out of the pens because they're adapting to that restricted amount of feed. But after about 10 days, they settle down. But when it's time to eat, they will be there at the bunks to eat. and actually, if a calf is not feeling well, there's absolutely a reason, and certainly would enhance the cattle detection, the health detection for people picking calves out of being sick.
That's one of my number one is when people are trying to, if they're not having a good job, not doing a good job of finding sick cattle, we'll crank down the feed, get those cattle aggressive, and then ride the pens while we're feeding. But you also mentioned some other things like manure management.
Well, there's cropping plans and everything. Manure is always the millstone around any feeding operation in terms of what you do with it. And whether it's supposedly the soil compaction or the nutrient management plans and so forth, guess what with limit feeding? You're feeding less roughage. As I indicated, we're feeding 13% instead of 45 or so percent. So there's less indigestible material passing through the tract, and more of it is being digested, about 10% of the diet. The apparent digestibilities are increased. Consequently, we see a reduction in fecal output of about 56%. So there's less manure coming out of the system. You're putting more of it on you're building that calf rather than utilizing that roughage to enhance its growth. It works very well, and we see consequently a reduction in manure issues.
Well, not only did you make mention of the ingredients going out of the calf, but when we're hauling ingredients in, limit feeding is decreasing your logistics or improving your logistics around ingredients.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're feeding a set of calves to where you may need 1.5 trucks or 2 truckloads to make it happen, you can maybe get it all accomplished with just one. So your tractor hour time, your labor time, and I failed to mention, we feed once a day. Those calves strip those bunks clean in 4 hours, Dr. Dan, and they're clean for 24 hours afterwards. So with rain or anything like that, there's no need for scoop shovels or anything to have to go out and clean bunks.
Hallelujah. That's awesome. Well, Dr. Dale, thanks for all you do at K-State. Thanks you do for our beef industry as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching DocTalk. If you want to know what we do here, you can find us on the web at www.doctalktv.com. Always work with your local veterinarian, And for Dale Blasi and Dr. Dan Thompson here at Kansas State University, thanks for watching us. I'll see you down the road.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.